Good evening all. We are deeply blessed today to have Swami Atmajnananandaji Maharaj here with us today. Swamiji is a senior monk of the Ramakrishna order. He joined the order in 1981 and received sannyas in 1996. Swamiji has been serving as a resident minister of the Vedanta Society of Greater Washington since 1997. The topic for today's lecture is Redefining Advaita Vedanta. Thank you, Swami.
So I spoke this weekend in Dallas and exhausted myself. So I purposely didn't really prepare anything too structured for tonight. I wanted to make it a little bit informal and questions and answers and back and forth. And I also didn't know how to entitle this session. I came up with something, but it wasn't exactly what I had in mind. I thought about Vedanta for Dummies, or redefining it through the light of devotion, Advaita Vedanta in the eyes of Swami Krishna, something like that. Because I have a theory that there are different ways of looking at some of these principles of Advaita Vedanta that will be very helpful without involving too much metaphysics and philosophy. I've been a student of philosophy for enough years that I don't care for it very much anymore. Yeah, and I begin to understand that every time we try to interpret something and describe something and put it in categories, we limit it and we lose it sometimes. So these are all ideas from Sri Ramakrishna, really, that he had a very clear understanding of the purpose of the scriptures, the purpose of what we call vichara, this intellectual trying attempt to understand things. And he had a very nice way of, I would say, reinterpreting some things, or at least allowing us to get some very, very important practical benefit from some of these Advaitic ideas that don't involve too much of this metaphysical fooling around with. So what I've done is I have a series of different terms and different concepts and different ideas that we find in Advaita Vedanta, and I want to try to see if we can look at these things from a different point of view and find a different type of value from all of these things. So let me just give one quick example that everybody knows about the snake and the rope. Can somebody explain to me what this illustration really means? The snake and the rope. You're going to be questioned tonight. Yes. Huh? You've all heard of this. Yes. Everybody knows about the snake and the rope. Yes. What does it mean? What does it refer to? Who can tell me what the illustration is meant to convey?
Well, you think it's a snake, but really it's a rope. And so the rope is the reality and the snake is the appearance.
Okay. Now, the first thing we have to understand is that every analogy is at the heart of it wrong. Every analogy will involve something that doesn't fit in. That, see, with Brahman, there's nothing that's the analogy for Brahman. Everything gives a little hint about something, and it has some function to play, but we have to see. We can very easily understand. I'll go through this idea that we're walking along the road. It's twilight. We don't see things very clearly. We look on the side of the road. We think that there's a snake, and when we notice that it's not moving, then we wonder, we go up a little closer, we shine a flashlight on it, and we see that it's a rope that looks like a snake. So this is an example of false identification of something. Now, we can say, if we like, that the rope is Brahman. But a rope and Brahman have nothing in common. This is the shortcoming of these different types of analogies. A rope is a rope. Everybody can understand how we can mistake a rope for a snake in the dark. Everybody can understand that. How does that help us? What are we trying to learn from that? Now, if I say that what that really means is Brahman is consciousness, that everything we're looking at is consciousness, and we're thinking that it's not consciousness. Now, does that make sense? Yes. Now, explain to me how an object for consciousness can be consciousness. See, one of the cardinal rules of Vedanta is that the knower can never be known. Subject can never be turned into an object. Essentially, Brahman is the subject. So what exactly does it mean? So we have to question these things. Otherwise, it's very, very easy. I'll give one other example. And Sri Ramakrishna uses this all the time. We have the sun that's reflected in the container of water. Now, we're told that if there are many containers of water, there'll be many reflected suns, but the one sun is unchanged. It doesn't matter how many reflected suns there are. Now, does this help us understand how consciousness can be reflected in the different minds and create this illusion of many separate souls? Does it really help? This is my question. So if we stop and think, first thing we'll say is, well, the sun is not consciousness. The water in the container is not mind, and the container is not a body. So we get a glimpse, we get a hint from all of these things. They're helpful. I'm not trying to say that they're not helpful, but we shouldn't fool ourselves into thinking that we've understood the relationship between the individual soul and Brahman if we understand this analogy of the sun being reflected in different containers of water. This is very, very important. And again, if I understand how we can confuse a rope with a snake, does that mean that I understand how possibly I'm really looking at consciousness itself and thinking I'm looking at objects? Does it? Not really, if we think about it. Now, one thing, I'll go back to the snake and rope. One thing is that we always tend to explain this in terms of something external. For some reason. This is always explained that way, that that means that I'm really seeing Brahman, but I fail to recognize it through ignorance and false identification, all these different things. But if we switch it around and take this for the internal confusion that we have, that I've identified this consciousness, which is my very own self, with the coverings of it. And when I look inside and see who is that dwelling within, I see a snake. Now, to me, it makes sense. Now we can understand how this false identity takes place. If we're thinking only about this external universe, Sri Ramakrishna is very clear that, and even Advaita Vedanta, that we can't say anything with any definitive conclusion about the nature of what we call this external universe. And now, many people, there'll be different drishti, all different types of things. That's just a projection of the mind. Sri Ramakrishna says, and that the world is unreal. Okay, now I'm going to start with this idea of redefinition. Now, we have terms, sat and asat. We can say real and unreal. We have vastu and avastu. Something with substance and the insubstantial. Then even something like Padartha and apadartha. Padartha, it means something that has some material quality to it. Apadartha, what does that mean? Anybody? Any Bengalis here? Apadartha.
Useless.
Useless, worthless. Yes, yes. So this is that redefining I want to talk about. Say with mithya. See, we read and hear that the essential teaching of Advaita Vedanta, there are three things. Anybody know? Brahma Satyam, then Jagat Mithya, and then Jiva Brahmaiva Napara. Okay, so these are the three things. Now, how this came about, I don't understand, and I don't know. I'll be perfectly honest with you. We don't know who came up with this verse. People say Shankaracharya, some say Vyasa. We don't have a real source for this verse, number one. Number two, this word mithya is not even a good Sanskrit word. It's some hybrid type of word. You look it up in a Sanskrit dictionary, and it doesn't give any real good definition for it.
I'm sorry to interrupt. If anyone has a silver Toyota in this house.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, now the practical world comes in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
Someone needs to leave.
That's fine. I don't know what I'm saying anyhow, so it doesn't
I
matter.
apologize to everybody.
So this Jagat Mithya, this is of course the big controversy. What does it mean for the world to be Mithya? What do we mean by this term Mithya? If we say unreal, does it mean absolutely unreal? Does it mean some projection? Does it mean imagination? Does it mean there's nothing there? How do we understand this concept? When we talk about the different schools of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, Vishishta Advaita Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, it doesn't say anything about the status of this external universe. Everything turns on what is the relationship between the Jivatman and the Paramatman. For Advaita Vedanta, they're one, there's no distinction, only false identification. For the qualified non-dualist, it's part to whole, combination of all of them is a whole. And for the dualist, each one is a separate individual soul. Now the Shaktas, we have this philosophy, those who look upon God as Divine Mother, they can be Advaitins in the sense that, yes, even for Durga Puja, we meditate, Saham, I am she. And we can have that feeling of oneness. At the same time, say that this world is real, because this is the manifestation of the Divine Mother. This is Mother's Aishwarya. This is Swami Krishna. He liked this idea. Now I want to make one thing very clear. I'll never say that this was his teaching or his understanding, because he liked all of the schools of Vedanta. He was equally happy with all of them. And if you go through some of his teachings, let's talk about the onion, peeling the onion. This onion stands for the different panchakoshas. We have these different coverings that, just like the onion, will have the different sheaths and layers to it. So, Sri Ramakrishna, he uses this illustration in two ways. One, he says, if you search for this I, this ego, and first you pull away this body and then the mind, senses, and all of that, you won't find any ego at all. And the other way, he says, if you try to find the self inside, you pull them all away, you'll find God in the center. So this is an Advaitic type of idea, that only separation of all of us is that we falsely identify with this particular set of coverings that we have. And if we could eliminate them, then there'd only be one. So picture, for example, in the Kathopanishad, this illustration of the passenger inside of the chariot. Okay? Now, we all know this illustration, that the driver will be buddhi, the intellect, the reins will be the mind, the horses will be the senses, and external objects will be the road, and the passenger is simply the witness, the observer. Now, we can assume that there are many chariots. Each one of us is a chariot, right? Now, when the individual leaves that chariot and they all get together, how many will there be? Will there be one for each chariot? Only one. Now, how do we explain that?
Because that's the form, but it's all one single consciousness.
Yeah, no, but how do we explain it? Try to imagine individuals, actual, real people inside of cars.
Okay.
And they all get out of the car. Yeah. So, if they carry with them the mind and the intellect. So suppose that we say now the driver is going to come along with them, then we can say there are many. Now, suppose they don't. Suppose the driver just gets out. The Advaitin will say, then there's only one who appears to be separated in all of them, some reflection in all of them. What will Sri Ramakrishna say? I'm not getting a good response from this group. Okay, now, let me give you another example that I think will give us the answer to this. I talked about what's called Pratibimbavada, this doctrine of reflection. Okay, a very, very nice doctrine. This doctrine is based on a dualistic model, but it has a non-dualistic purpose behind it. Dualistic model, we have to believe in the body and the mind and the senses. We have to have the container, we have to have water, and we have to have the sun. So we assume that the sun can be reflected in the water. We assume somehow Brahman can be reflected in the mind. So that the mind can access consciousness, but the body can't. It's like with real sunlight, that it'll only be reflected in something that has that power to reflect. If it lands on this black top, then you won't see any reflected sun. Okay. Now, he had a conversation with Girish Ghosh one time, and he said, okay, Girish, suppose we have 10 containers of water. The sun is being reflected in all of them. How many suns do we see? So what will be the answer?
Sun is only one.
But how about the reflected suns?
10.
We see 10.
No, 11.
11, one is the sun.
The one, the real sun plus the 10 reflected
Oh,
suns. Okay. So Sri Ramakrishna says, very good. Then he says, suppose we break one. Then how many? 10. And then he says, suppose we break all of them but one. How many suns will we see? 2. Then he says, suppose we break that last one. How many suns will we see? No.
You don't see anything, so you don't see.
There's no one to see at that point. So he says then there's no one to say. Who can say? He says same thing when the salt dog goes to the bottom of the ocean to measure the depth. By the time he gets to the bottom, there's no one to say how deep it was. So he says what Brahman is cannot be expressed in words. Yeah. So the non-dualists will say that yes, there's only one passenger, somehow apparently divided into all of the different chariots, and the dualists will say that no, each one has to be a separate one. So the dualistic position is that every jiva will remain an individual even in the state of liberation. So every drop of water that goes back to the ocean remains a drop of water, but it's merged in the ocean. So this will be their position. The non-dualists will have the opposite. Sri Ramakrishna will say that nobody can say at that point. Is it one, is it many? So what is his position with regard to philosophy then? That is it necessary for us to come to some conclusion that ultimately there is oneness, ultimately this final liberation is merging in God, union with God, perfect identity, that what is the role that these different philosophical systems play in our spiritual life? So this is the question. So Sri Ramakrishna, he made a statement that it's probably the most famous statement that he made, Jyotama Totopat. Okay, what does that mean? Come on.
As many ways, so many paths.
Okay, Joto Mat. Generally, we take this to mean as many faiths, because this was a statement that he made when he had completed his sadhana of all different schools of Vedanta, all different the Vaishnava schools, and Christianity and Islam, and Advaita Vedanta. Then he came up with a statement, Joto Mat Joto Pat, that as many faiths, each faith is a different path to God. But this term, Mat is a Sanskrit term, Mata. Mata, it means darshana also. It means every philosophical system is a path. And then he'll say, but don't confuse the path with the reality. Don't confuse, we don't find truth in the philosophy. The song, Ke Jani Kali Kamon, Shara Dorshale not by Dorshan. What is Mother Kali like? The Ram Prasad says. What is she like? You will not get the vision of Mother Kali in any of the 6 systems of Indian philosophy, the 6 darshanas. So these are aids for us, they're helpful, and Thakur liked all of them. I mentioned the onion, so this is a non-dualistic thing. Then, what about the bell fruit? Does anybody know about the bell fruit? Yes, tell us about the bell fruit.
Like if you go to buy a bell fruit, then you would, the shopkeeper would weigh the bell fruit including the seed. It would not remove the seed and weigh only the flesh.
Okay.
Only the useful part is probably the flesh.
Okay, very good. So everybody knows what a bell fruit is. Bell fruit has a hard outer shell kind of thing, which has to be discarded. It has the seeds in the very inside, which are discarded, and there's a little flesh there, something like a butternut squash or something, and that will be used to make sherbet. Then you can make a nice drink out of that. So we discard the outer portion, and we discard the seeds in the inside. And then Swami Krishna says, but if you don't add the other 2 elements, you won't get the full weight of the bell fruit. Now, this is a perfect example of Vishishta Advaita Vedanta. And so people will say, well, was he a non-dualist or was he a qualified non-dualist? Because he likes this illustration. He says, what are the seeds? Individual jivas. So according to Ramanuja, the individual soul is an individual soul. Forget about all this hokey pokey about false identification, this and that. We all feel ourselves to be individuals. So accept that, all individual souls. And this outer crust is this visible universe. So this Vishishta Advaita Vedanta. Vishishta means that this Brahman is qualified, that it's one. Brahman is one, but it has interior parts, internal parts. There's all the individual souls dwelt within Brahman, and this universe is the external manifestation of Brahman. And does it contradict Advaita Vedanta? Yes, for the philosopher it does. For the spiritual seeker, Swami Krishna's point is that you accept the one that appeals to you, and that appeals to your sense of logic and is easy to understand and gives scope for spiritual practice. So they go back to the onion. He'll say, yes, that through reasoning and even through experience, we can come to the conclusion that the sense of I is nothing but an idea. There's nothing that corresponds to it. It's just what I think, who I think that I am, what this whole concept of self-image, that's what we mean by I. But it's a vastu. There's no substance to it. There's nothing underlying it. Then he says, you can reason 1,000 times. The very next moment, this feeling I will come back. So he says, then don't spend your whole life beating your head against the wall. Take advantage of that feeling of I. Only convert that into some relationship. That with this I is like a stick on the surface of water, he says. A stick on the surface of water, giving the feeling of separation. Ultimately, there's only one body of water, but we feel, because of this sense of I, we all feel separate from each other. I don't feel that I'm you. And I don't feel if you're eating that it's satisfying my hunger. Even the God-realized soul doesn't feel that. Of course, for Ramakrishna, he had certain times somebody slapped somebody in the back, he felt it, but these were unusual things. Otherwise, this sense of I exists even for the God-realized soul. And for Ramakrishna calls this the right I. So, what I want to get back to is that we have terms like this mithya. How do we understand when we say, if we say this world is false? Now, all of these terms have a secondary meaning. Secondary meaning. So mithya, miche, in Bengali, they'll say miche, that it means something is futile and vain. Miche brahma bhumandale, which is a very nice song, that in vain do we wander through this earth. So it means that this world doesn't have the power to satisfy us. There's something false about it, avastu. There's something insubstantial about it. And whenever Sri Ramakrishna uses this term sad and asat, that in the English translation, sad is always translated, almost always translated as illusory. Brahman alone is real, the world is illusory. It's very, I would say, it gives a very wrong type of impression, because Ramakrishna replaces this mithya with anitya, that this world is transitory. So we can accept this idea that this world is mithya without saying that somehow it doesn't exist. Now there's a big distinction between mithya and abhava. Abhava means non-existent. And Thakur says, if you say this world doesn't exist, you have to say you don't exist also. So he takes more of a realistic point of view of these things. So now, if we want to redefine some of these terms, we can say, yes, I understand this world to be avastu, insubstantial. I can understand it to be mithya, that this desire to live in this world just for enjoyment and pleasure and not care about this or that is leading a life in vain, mithya. That type of understanding. So to go back to the snake in the rope, okay? Now, I was saying that if we look at this from the point of view, what is the only way that we have any sense of what Brahman is, consciousness, is the self. We know that we exist. We have no way of knowing what this external world is. We have no way of knowing if we're dreaming all of this, or if this is an illusion. We have no way of knowing that. There's no possible way that we may be convinced that everything is real, and then we wake up, we were dreaming. Yeah, I think we can all agree that there's no objective marker that can tell us that we're not dreaming at this very second. No matter how real it seems, that we can wake up and say, I had a dream that this ridiculous fellow was giving this lecture. It didn't make any sense, saying that everything is unreal or real, whatever, that what a strange dream it was. On the other hand, we can have a dream that is more real than this waking state. We can have things happen in this dream world that will leave a deep impression, especially nightmares and things like that. Yeah. So we've all had that experience that we may dream over and over again that, you know, we're back in high school and we can't find the room that we're trying to go to, and we forgot to wear our clothes and all of that, and to think that, oh, it must be a dream. And usually we find out it was a dream. Other times, suppose we lock the keys in the car and the car is running. And we go, oh my God, this can't be real. I must be dreaming. But it turns out it's real. We weren't dreaming. So there's no real way of saying that anything, but we know that we exist. We know that we exist. So what are we confusing ourselves with? What is it that makes us not see the rope within the real self and makes us see this individual, this false identification with all the external things? Now, what is the secondary meaning? This is the redefining portion of all of this. Secondary meaning is that what happens when we see a snake? We're afraid. Fear. So this is almost the essential aspect of all of this. What is the cause of fear and anxiety in this world? Yeah. that we're all constantly superimposing things on ourselves and on other people, and not feeling our oneness with other people. Now again, oneness. If we say oneness, do we really have to say that there's only one self? The self in you and the self in me are one and the same. It's a very difficult concept. If we really try to, what does it mean for me to think the self in me, the self in me? I can understand the same source of consciousness, the one sun, but this idea of oneness, I can feel oneness with everybody on an emotional level. On an emotional level, I can feel that we all have the same hopes and dreams, that we have some connection. We're all strong on that same thread, this Sutratma, that we have the connection that way without worrying about are there many jivas, is there one jiva? All of these different types of questions. So this is kind of a reinterpretation that I'm trying to get to with regard to some of these doctrines that don't have to be taken literally or in a metaphysical way and don't have to be eliminated. We don't have to say, oh, this idea, Jaya Mithya, that there's no meaning to it. No, there's a very clear meaning to it. If we say samsara mithya instead of jagat, if by jagat, if we think, what we call this physical external world is not a physical external world. Okay, that's for the philosophers to argue about. But if we say this samsara, that worldly life somehow has something hollow about it. And this can be a very meaningful type of statement. This is what Ramakrishna emphasizes. So this vichara, sadasat. Now we talk about what does sad and asat mean? Anybody? It's a very bad crowd tonight. Real and unreal. Okay. Now, it can also mean that which is of value and that which has no value to it. See, this vichara. Vichara, generally we say sadasat vichara, that we're trying to analyze what has actual value and substance to it. And as I was saying, for Swami Krishna, this asat, he always says anitya, transitory. Now, what is transitory about this world?
It's changing.
World is changing. Okay. Suppose the world doesn't change. Just imagine that we're Groundhog Day. Every day we wake up, we look exactly the same. Clock is everything the same. Nothing will decay. It's still anitya because we're the ones who are anitya. We're the ones who are constantly changing. That even if nothing else changes at all, time, this mind and time, and every time is flowing by, and everything is getting washed away with this river of time and going to this dustbin of the past. So the very essence of this world is that everything is fleeting. Whether we say that something, we can build a house that will outlive us, out of stone. That's not the essential part. That I am the one, and even if I live forever, every day is a different day. And where did yesterday go? Yesterday disappeared. So this Vajravindam, there's one of the verses there. It says, Kala Kridati Gachati Ayu. There's a play of time, but my life is going. The time is playing its play, and this life is going, day after day after day, and quickly. This is why Thakur says time is Maya. If we analyze this time, that time is the all-destroyer. Everything will be gone in time. Comes into existence in time, will go out in time. So this type of analysis of the real and the unreal, he'll explain in terms of this unchanging nature of the self and this constantly changing nature of the lower self or of this world. Now, second meaning of the sat vichara, which is even more important, is what is essential in life and what is secondary. What are our goals and what are our values in life? This is this distinction that we call Shreyas and Preyas. We find in Kathopanishad. This Kathopanishad, the young boy, Nachiketa, that he goes to Yama and Yama has to give him 3 different boons. He wants to know the real nature of the self, and the Yama, he wants to test him, and he's also hesitant to tell him. So he tempts him with all sorts of gifts and wonderful things. And Nachiketa, he says, I don't want these, I only want to know the highest truth. And then the Yama says, you're very intelligent, that every second we're presented with 2 options. One he calls Shreyas, and one he calls Preyas. So Preyas, there's nothing wrong about it. Preyas is that which is enjoyable, pleasurable, but transitory, and won't lead to anything really higher. Whereas Shreyas is that which is for the ultimate good of ourselves and everybody else. So that type of vichara is invaluable. So Sri Ramakrishna, he has two different statements. They look contradictory in the very beginning. That he has these conversations with M. N was the recorder of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. That N was very fond of what he used to call the vichara. And that means always asking questions. How did this world come into existence? Now, even in the Upanishads, we have different theories, like the spider, it gets spun out. Thakur's, his answer is completely different. He said, who can say? That who can understand the ways of God? These are mysterious things. He's very, very intelligent and sensible about all of that. So he says, this type of vichara, he says, give it up. That don't keep asking questions that have no answers. And it won't be helpful in your spiritual life. Suppose you decide, oh, all of this is like a dream. Does that help us? Then how do we deal with other people and interact with people and everything? What is the result of it? So he says, promise me that you won't do this vichara anymore. So M says, yes, I promise. Then Sri Ramakrishna will say, one should constantly practice this sadhasad vichara. One should constantly be questioning oneself, is this something that will be ultimately helpful in spiritual life, or will drag me down? So again, it's kind of redefining what we mean by these different terms. We can say that he doesn't like this other vichara, so throw out this other vichara. But if we look at it from this point of view, then we can see that this is essential in spiritual life, to constantly question our motives. What will lead us to something higher? What will be valuable for us? We look at this world, instead of saying, what is the metaphysical status of this world? Let's say, what can I get from it? What can this fulfill that longing of my heart? Is there anything of substance in this running around for enjoyment? And then we can say that avastu. It has nothing to do with the metaphysics of it. Now, if people like metaphysics, that's fine. I have nothing against that. But this is the way Sri Ramakrishna approaches all of these things. That is a very, very practical. And those who are more inclined to a dualistic way of looking at things. Now, let me just repeat what I said before. Sri Ramakrishna, we cannot pin him down. Somebody say, well, was he an Advaitin? Was he this? Was he that? He didn't look at it that way. That all of these are different attitudes that one can take, different ways of trying to define reality. We can't even define an individual. If you say, well, what is this person like? Everything we say about that individual will be limiting. That infinite aspects to everything that can take place. So Thakur says, yeah, don't get involved in all of that. You want to take a bath in the Ganges, you don't have to start from this Gangotri and swim all the way down to Gangasagar. That wherever you go in, wherever you touched it, you've bathed in the Ganges. So he's very, very practical that way. And his attitude towards philosophy is that it's helpful, it can give us some conviction, it can give us some grounding for things. But he's practical. He says the reality may be that there's only oneness, that I am that pure consciousness. The fact of the matter is this feeling of I doesn't leave us. So he says then utilize that feeling of I. Then he gives the example, a very famous example, of a Hanuman. This is a very well-known verse, and for Sri Ramakrishna, it's almost his motto. If we understand this one verse, that Hanuman, he goes into this darbar, this big court assembly where Rama is there, and Rama makes a big show of things. He says, Hanuman, how do you look upon me? So we have this very nice verse that says, Deha buddhya tu dasoham. He said, if I think of myself as the body, if I feel identified with the body, if that's my mindset, I wake up one morning and just, yes, I'm a monkey. I feel that way, then I look upon you as the master and I'm the servant. Then he says, Jiva buddhya tvadanchakaha. If I feel that I'm an individual soul, that I dwell within a body, but I'm separate from the body, I can leave this body, take a new body. If I feel like that, then I feel that you're the whole and I'm a part of you. And then he says, Atma buddhya tvameva. That when I feel myself to be the Atman, the self, you and I are one and the same, no difference whatsoever. And then he says, Iti me nishtita matihi. This is my final and certain opinion about all of this. Now, is the final opinion the last thing that he says? Or is it all of them? We have to say all of them. Yeah. All of them. Each is equally valid. Those who want to have a devotional life, then they accept the reality of this feeling of I. So this is the way Sri Ramakrishna explains it, that one takes a dualistic devotional attitude or something out of a realistic understanding that this is the way we look upon things, not as a philosophical position that the individual soul is eternally separate from God. It's a completely different way of looking at the whole thing. He says that if this feeling of I is there, then he says this ego is there, let that rascal remain as a servant of God. A very practical thing. And through that devotional attitude and relationship, one can reach that state of oneness. That'll be the common goal for everything. And even the state of oneness, the devotee will not think of oneness, will never say that I'm one with the object of my worship, but will become self-forgetful. So God alone exists, the beloved alone exists. And the one reaches that state. Swamiji, he used to tell this Sufi story that there was a man who was deeply in love with a woman, and he goes to her one night, and she's behind the door, and he knocks on the door, and she says, who is it? And he says, it's the beloved. And she says again, who is it? He gives the same answer. Then finally, the third time, she says, who is it? And he says, it's your very own self. And then she opens the door. So even this devotional, this Sufi story, devotional type of attitude, Thakur says, will end with this feeling of oneness. But they'll explain it differently. We achieve the state of union with the divine, with the beloved. Others will say that I merged in Brahman. Others will say I realized that I was that from the very beginning. There was never any real difference. Now, for Sri Ramakrishna, he says good. They're all good attitudes. Whichever one works for you, that you follow that. So he has this philosophy, Ruchi Bheda and Hajam Shakti. He uses this very nice way of understanding it, that if there's a food that has to be served, and the mother has to decide what food to give the children, she'll first think, what appeals to them? What do they like? Ruchi Veda, they all have a different sense of taste. They all like different things. And Hazam Shakti, but they all have a different power of digestion. Somebody may like to eat on some very spicy food, but they can't handle it. So mother won't give it to them. So this question of what path we follow, sometimes the things that appeal to us are not the things that are best for us. So if we try to force ourselves into a devotional mood when we don't have much belief in a personal God, it won't work. On the other hand, and this is very traditional way of understanding Advaita Vedanta, that if we want to practice Advaita Vedanta and at the same time don't feel intense dispassion for the world, intense vairagya, renunciation. If we feel any attraction to the world, then follow something else. This is something, nobody likes to hear this. I know that. Nobody likes to hear this, but this is Bhagavad Gita. This is Sri Ramakrishna. This is very, very commonly we hear that the path of Jnana Yoga is for those who have a tremendous feeling of Vairagya. And to say that, yes, this world is unreal, and then to run after enjoyment, there's an essential hypocrisy behind all of that. So what Sri Ramakrishna says is, yes, keep that grounding, that idea of oneness. Yes, it's very important. Stick it in your pocket. Stick it in your pocket, and then ground your spiritual life on the starting point should be what is your understanding of who you are and relationship with God. So he says, establish a relationship with God. And he says that adopt a certain spiritual attitude. He says, bhava. There's a bhava. He says, ashray korte hoy. That we take shelter with this, we take refuge. This becomes the anchor for us in spiritual life of relationship. A relationship. Now, somebody will say, why a relationship? We want oneness. Now, if this feeling of I is there, then we have to have some type of relationship. If the feeling of separation is there. Otherwise, we try to just merge in that infinite absolute. I'll give one other example. That Sri Ramakrishna gives the illustration of there's one pond, and there are different communities that have a different bathing hut, and they'll go and they'll fetch water, and each one will have its own. So the Hindus will go in one, Muslims in another, Christians in another. And they'll all have different containers to take the water, and they'll use different words. They'll use different words for water. So he says the Hindu, they'll have a pitcher, they'll fill it with water, and they'll call it jal. And Muslims, they'll have some type of leather sack, they'll fill it with water, they'll call it pani. Christian will have a bucket, they'll fill it, and they'll call it water. Okay. So this, what is the nature of the water inside of the container? So it's not just a question of all giving it different names, but what is the nature of the water inside of the, is that water, is it formless or does it have a form? It has a form. Anybody else? Formless. Anybody else? Okay. It's both. At one at the same time. The water is always formless. It never, unless you freeze it into ice, yeah, the water itself, it doesn't have a form of its own, and yet it's never found in a formless form. Even if we look at the ocean or something, the top will be flat, and the bottom will take the shape of the ocean bed. So for those who want to access this Satchidananda, this water, this divine water, that what is the container that they're using? It's their own mind or their own heart or their own conception of God. But that doesn't change the fact that it's formless. It's that the infinite aspect is always there. So that's why Thakur says that Brahman is both with form and without form. He explains it that way. Or he gives the example of blocks of ice in very cold regions. The water forms into a block of ice. Now, what is the nature of that block of ice? What does it look like? He says it depends on the Hima Shakti, this power, this cooling power of the devotee will cause that ice to form in the particular shape that he wants to see it. So for someone, that water in the form of ice will appear as Krishna, as Rama, as Christ, as Buddha, all different forms. And somebody will say, well, then it's just subjective. Yes, the form is subjective, the reality is objective, and it's all water. And even in the block of ice form, it's still, the water is formless. And when the sun of knowledge comes, it melts back and becomes one with the ocean again. So Sri Ramakrishna, he was able to see the beauty in all the different schools of Vedanta. He was able to take some of these elements of Advaita Vedanta that are highly speculative and philosophical and make them very practical. Yeah. To look upon this world as mithya is just to say that there's so much of foolishness in this world, so much of deceitfulness, so much of calling things the wrong names and telling lies and pretending we like people, we don't like people. There's also mithya. That we can look at that and it'll be very helpful for us to take that type of attitude. So we can see this. If there are any other things I would say. Okay, so this idea of ego. Okay, another redefinition. Ahankara. What does ahankara mean?
Ego.
Anything else?
Arrogance.
Yes, see, exactly. Now you're getting the point. Philosophically, yeah. Do I have this sense of I that I have? Is it real? Does it correspond to the individual soul? Is it just some false type of thing? There's one understanding that if we say that, yes, I want to transcend this sense of ego. Okay, so the one way of looking at it. The other way is to say that I want to get rid of pride. Pride and arrogance. This is one of the main obstacles in spiritual life. There's nirahankara, this idea to be free from pride. So don't bother too much about the philosophical side of it. Then, karta and akarta. Okay, so Sri Ramakrishna very often says that the highest understanding of things is when I feel that I'm not the agent of action. And we read in Gita that to have this feeling that all action is performed by the mind and the senses and everything, and I'm just the witness of everything. Now, karta has another meaning. Anybody know what it means?
Master.
Master, yes. So I can say that, yes, I feel like I'm the agent of action. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to say that I feel that I'm acting because Divine Mother within me is telling me to act. No, I did it. I have to take responsibility. But I don't want to have this idea that I'm a big shot, that I'm the boss. Karta. Sri Ramakrishna says these three words, pricked his skin like this. There's a type of fish, like a Portuguese man of war, stings. So he says Guru, Karta, and Baba. So father, but not father in an ordinary sense. This is the type of word that they use for holy men. And Guru, to think that I'm a big teacher and everything, and Karta, that somehow I'm the master of the house, that you have to all bow down before me. So I can say that it doesn't seem realistic for me to ever try to say that I'm not the one who's doing this, that God dwelling within is making me do it, or that I'm not responsible, my mind and my hand did it. Yeah. To me, I understand the value of all of these ideas, but for me personally, it'll be hypocritical. And at the same time, I can say, yes, I want to take this dasya bhava, I want to take this attitude that Hanuman had. I do everything as a servant. I like this feeling of being a servant and doing everything for the sake of the master, and I don't want to look upon myself as a karta. So this is another example of how we can redefine some of these ideas and some of these concepts so that they can be very practical and very helpful for us in spiritual life. And we don't always have to, in fact, we should, I think, get rid of this idea that through philosophical thinking that we can come to conclusions that everybody will accept. This we're reading Pantadashi, one of the Advaitic texts, and there are several verses that talk about this fact that all the different philosophers will have different opinions about these things, and they'll all disagree with each other. And Sri Ramakrishna said, yes, there are all different ways of looking at it. Swamiji said that you won't find truth in doctrines and dogmas. And then he gives the example that if you're standing in the middle of the room and you describe what that room looks like, it'll be one description. You stand in a corner and you describe it, it'll be another description. You take a picture of the sun at a certain distance, it'll be a big thing. You go a little bit closer, even bigger. The same sun, the same reality. So if we understand philosophy that way as being a path, and we can accept that which we like and which is helpful and which we can digest, Hajam Shakti. We have to be able to have this adhikara for it. And then we can find that these are all very helpful ideas. And even if we find this Advaita Vedanta, this idea of oneness, which personally I accept. This is just a confession to me that I was drawn in. I love this Advaita Vedanta philosophy, but how practical is it for most of us? And does it allow for any devotion? Because the heart is the most important thing in spiritual life. That can we utilize this and have it allow us to have a relationship that will utilize this feeling of love within the heart. And that love is the anchor, that love is the pull. That's what will eliminate this feeling of separation. Swamiji says love is that cord that we use to bring us closer and closer and closer until we realize that oneness. So I'm all talked out. Now, if anybody would like to ask anything or critique, you may not like any of this at all. Some idea came into my mind to talk about something like this. I was warned. I was full of Advaitins here. So there's a little bit of a devil's advocate tonight.
Swamiji,
Yes.
The premise of Vedanta is the idea that the world is full of suffering, right? And we're all going to die, there's going to be horrible things happen to us at some point, and so to sort of protect ourselves from just the world's most horrible things, we embrace the idea of Brahman and of something higher than what we can, or what sort of we're predisposed to have as our fates. And that's really true, right? We do have a lot of suffering. There's lots of horrible things happen to all of us at some point in time in our lives. But there's also a lot of really good things that happen to us as well. And I just find this premise that we should anchor our lives in the idea that there's a lot of suffering very pessimistic. It doesn't feel like coming out of a sense of abundance.
Yes.
Right? And we see plenty of examples of people who've led very abundant lives.
Yes.
And they've not necessarily used religion as their basis. They found enjoyment in in the work they're doing, or in the hobbies they follow, and the fun things they do. And yes, a lot of it is transitory and short-ended, but it's still great, right? So I'm just trying to understand, why should we restrict ourselves in this premise that the world is so difficult when there's a lot of wonderful things also about this world? And why can't we root ourselves in optimism around those beautiful, wonderful things and discover them, and instead of,
Yes.
sort of a very reductionist view, right? This very small, shortening view, sort of,
Yes.
so to speak.
I agree. And this idea that everything is suffering, this was something that was brought in mostly by the Buddhist tradition. The very strong Buddhist idea, sarvam dukkha, everything is suffering. If we can navigate this world in such a way that we eliminate selfishness and ego and can feel one with other people, we can live joyfully in this world. Now, I'll explain in terms of two songs that Sri Ramakrishna used to sing. One is a Ram Prasad song, that this world is a framework of illusion. And this whole idea that we can get stuck here and caught in and everything. Now, this Ram Prasad, he used to, many of these songs he would create just on the spot. He would sing these songs. There was somebody else from his same village where he lived, one Goswami, I forget his name, Aju, I think, Aju Goswami. He used to follow, he was a Vaishnava, he used to follow him around and make up songs that would kind of make fun of his song or give the opposite view of his song. So he composed a song that said that this world is a mansion of mirth. Here we can have joy, and talking about the King Janaka, how we fence with two swords, the one of God, one of the world, all of that. And Sri Ramakrishna, although he said he liked the second song better. So if we can live according to a high ideal, if we can be sensible, if we can eliminate selfishness and all these types of desires that get us into trouble, yes, we should be able to live happily in this world. And if we get anchored, grounded in something deeper, we feel that divine presence within, or we feel that I am that witness of everything, then even when bad things happen, we shouldn't lose our grounding. So part of spiritual life is not just for some future goal, but for living happily in this world. Now, the one special verse in the Gita that I like very much, that it says that someone who can be free from all of this maya, from this pull of the passions and sense, all of that they're not swayed by the lower desires and everything. It says that this person is yukta. This is a yogi. This is someone who's really realized something. And it says sukhi naraha, and this is a happy person. This is a happy person. So if we look at the teachings of Gita and Vedanta in general, that it's not meant for us to say, yes, I led a nice happy life, but that's the byproduct of it. If we lead a meditative life, if we lead a life according to an ideal, if we lead an unselfish type of life, then we'll find that, compared to other people at least, that relatively, that we have some degree of joy in our lives and some feeling of contentment, that we're doing what we should do, and this is important. And the second thing is that I agree totally, there are people without any real spiritual interest. They may not believe in God or anything like that. They lead a very good type of life, and they have a good family life. They raise the family, they have a good business. They feel they've been successful. They feel that they've helped other people, and at the end of their life, they feel some type of contentment. That this is extremely important and extremely helpful. And they'll grow spiritually, whether they even think in those terms or not. But this Vedanta, if we follow these teachings, it should bring a tremendous feeling of inner joy and peace within our lives. And all of the things that are the difficult things to navigate. Sometimes Ramakrishna say it's like a snake pit. The clever person, or he says it's like a forest of thorns. How do we keep from her damaging our feet? He says, wear the shoes of devotion. Put on the shoes of devotion, that'll protect you from all the thorns on the ground. So yes, this is a very good point, very important thing, that we shouldn't be too negative. And for Swami Krishna, he says, see God everywhere. How much joy there is, Swamiji. How much joy there is in doing everything as an offering. And how much joy there is in serving somebody else, seeing the divine within them. Don't have this feeling that this poor fellow is there and you're helping them and they should be very grateful. Feel what a tremendous opportunity it is. What a tremendous blessing it is to be able to serve somebody else with the feeling that this is God come to you in human form. So yes, very, very important point, that if we lead this type of spiritual life, that is our ideal, that we shouldn't constantly be feeling everything is misery, everything is suffering. that all the question of the mind, that we should reach that state of mind, that steadiness and that unshakable nature of mind, that we're not moved even when we face very great difficulties in life. We have this line, Yasmin sthito na dukkena gurunapi vichalyate, that one who is established in spiritual life, either established in the self, or one has perfect reliance on God, perfect surrender, will not be moved even by heavy sorrow. We'll feel sadness, but we won't be completely knocked off center. We'll have something that Thakur said, we'll have that post to hold on to. And then other times we can feel the joy. What joy if we feel we're in the company of God dwelling in human form and seeing everything as the manifestation of the Divine Mother, the Mother herself, we're seeing. So it should be, spiritual life should be very joyful. And the spiritual practice should also bring us a great joy. So thank you for that question. Very, very important point.
So some kinds of desires, it's easy to see viscerally that it can only bring unhappiness, like pride. But other things we are told not to do, it's difficult to not do it unless like I can see it very viscerally and directly that it is harmful to me in some way.
Some things we have to do. See, there are two types of people. One can observe somebody sticking their finger in the fire and say, I won't do it. And there are other people who have to stick it in the fire themselves. So sometimes we have to learn our lesson that Sri Ramakrishna says that there are certain desires that have to be fulfilled. Yeah, it's the opposite of what we normally think. Every desire is bad, we can't fulfill it. No. He says that you have to reach the end of desire, bhavanta. You have to fulfill these desires so that you can say, I've done it. And at the same time, analyze. It wasn't such a big deal. Yeah, it was okay. Do I have to do it again? No, I'm finished with it. So there's some desires that the more we fulfill them, the greater the desire comes to do it again. These are the ones we have to avoid. And we have to analyze very carefully and know which are good desires, bad desires, harmless desires, harmful desires. So they're all different grades. But there's some very innocent things that if we don't fulfill, mind will always, end of life will say, I always wanted to do the skydiving. I never did it. Yeah. Or we can do it, we do it once, and someone will say, do you want to do it again? No. I did it. I did it once. It's a bucket list. But I did it once, that desire is gone. It was wonderful, I appreciate it. It was good. It wasn't a bad thing, it wasn't harmful. But now the mind is free. So some desires we have to fulfill. And so for some people, it's a whole lifetime. The desire to build up a good career and business and everything. They'll devote their whole lifetime to it. At the end of that, either they'll say, I did it, how wonderful I am. Or they'll say that, yeah, that even this, one day this will be nothing. That I did it, now I see the more important things in life. So sometimes we learn our lessons, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we have to keep coming back. Sometimes we get satiated by fulfillment of desire. Sometimes it keeps increasing endlessly. Yeah, we have our King Yayati. That the more he tried to enjoy the world, the more the desire grew. And then he said, trying to get rid of desires, by fulfilling them, it's like pouring ghee on the fire. It only blazes up more. This is only one class of desire. There are other types of desires that we always wanted to taste this type of food, to go to visit some type of place. We do it and we're finished with it, that's all. Yeah, and then the mind will be free. So it's a very tricky thing with the desire. We have to really learn to distinguish, I say harmless from harmful, and what things will relieve us of that desire in the future, what things will increase that desire in the future. Bless you.
Thanks, Ranji. The Advaita philosophy is, something that I've feel very comfortable with it. But one, and the aspect of renunciation of desire, etc., just appeals to me. But one question I've had is, when I think about the choice of all between the three paths, and I think about Advaita, it seems like it requires a sense of arrogance to say that I am one with God, that I am the same. And how do I justify that choice? How do I say that this is the right thing to do at the very beginning of my journey?
Yeah, we have to realize that the I who says that I am he is not this ego sense. That we have to understand that that's really, there's a higher self. And so there won't be any pride involved in that. Now, Sri Ramakrishna, he gives a nice example also. He says, suppose that the servant goes up to the master and sits next to him and says, you and I are the same. What will happen? The master will kick him out. But suppose the master is very pleased and says, please come sit by me, I'm very pleased with you. You and I are the same. He says, then it's okay that way. If the second one is approached with all types of humility. The other way of looking at it is, it's not that I am one with the Brahman. It's a dualistic idea. I am there, Brahman is there, we're one. Brahman alone exists. Brahman alone is that reality within, somehow under the delusion of Maya, thinking itself to be an individual. But really, Brahman alone exists. There's no I. That I will disappear. Then there's no sense of this feeling of arrogance or anything. But yes, there are arrogant jnanis who go about like that. There are also arrogant devotees. Yeah. So it's not good in either case.
Just to follow up to what you said,
Yes.
so you said some increase, some desires increase, they're bad, some decrease, they're innocent. What about stuff that stays constant? Like the desire to eat a certain kind of food. That doesn't increase or decrease.
Yeah, you have to see, is it something bad? I mean, there's certain foods that I like that I don't crave them, but I enjoy them. So I don't see any harm in those types of things. Vedanta is not a puritanical type of thing. That, oh, every enjoyment is bad, every desire is bad. It's not like that. This is why we have to keep holy company, and we can see how some of these great sadhus, how they can relish food, how they can enjoy even watching a cricket match, something like that, with great detachment and everything. So, yeah, again, it's all a question of analyzing. How does the mind react to all of these things? Yeah, but there's no harm in enjoying things. We should enjoy things. Yeah, just within reason. We're not hurting anybody else, and we're not hurting ourselves. And yeah, we don't belong to that school that will pour ashes on the food before eating it. I think St. Francis used to do that. Yeah.
Maharaj, you talked about the ruchi and the So my question here is, how do we know what exactly can be digested? Ruchi wise, of course, I can identify what my ruchi is. But how do we identify? Is it just by experiment? Only?
Sometimes we need somebody else to observe it. Yeah, for example, there was one sadhu who lived near Sri Ramakrishna. Many people would stay in Dakshineshwar at that time. And he used to tell lies. So one day he came to Sri Ramakrishna, and Sri Ramakrishna said to him, but I hear you tell lies. And he says, yes, if this whole world is unreal, then only my words have to be real. So I spit on that type of Vedanta. That if he really meant it, that means he couldn't digest, he couldn't fully understand the idea and what are the ramifications of it. So either someone else will have to point it out to us, or internally we'll have to understand. Many people, the problem is that there's a lot of self-deception that goes on. That we think we've understood something, we think it's good for us, that we have to look at the fruits. How has it affected our lives? How has it led to a sense of peace? How has it made us less selfish in life? So there are markers, and all of these things, we have to look at the results. What are the fruits of this type of practice?
So is there any practical tips on how to reduce this ahankara? That, we did something and...
Yes, I have a very practical hint. That if we look at these great souls and compare ourselves to them, and then how small we can feel. Whatever great thing I've done, I look at it as Swami Vivekananda. Forget about Thakur Ma, that's too high. But at any of these, any of the direct disciples, or any of these other great souls who have done just so many heroic things, then I look at myself and say, how small it is compared to that. How can I take pride in something like that? In one way, yeah. Otherwise, we can say, yes, only through the Mother's grace that I was able to do this. Yeah, there's some sense of humility, but yeah, I like this other idea that we'll always find people far greater than us, that if we compare ourselves to them, it'll wash out any idea that I should be proud of my achievements or anything like that.
I think, Maharaj, if you can explain particularly the reflection theory again.
Yes.
Basically I'm trying to understand this, that there is one source of light.
Yes.
And then we have these buckets of water.
Yes.
And so we are assuming that these waters are not colored, and they might have some reflective properties and some.
Yes.
It could be, one could be water, one could be mirror, one could be something, right? I mean, all. So does it actually matter the way we look at it, that we will see different forms of light? Or is it something that if I'm, for example, if I'm kind of going blind, I will see it in a very different way.
Yeah.
And then if I'm a very young child, I will see it in a very different way.
Yeah.
So is it something that this particular theory completely explains the theory of basically one?
No, the main point of this is if we say that Brahman itself is taking the form of all the different jivas, individuals in this world. Brahman, like the spider, is projecting everything out of itself, this visible world, then dwells within. And Brahman somehow is dividing itself. So the obvious thing will be that each time you're taking a chunk out of Brahman, it'll become smaller, it'll become diminished, something like that. And then they say, no, look at the example, that no matter how many reflected suns there are, the real sun is not affected at all. So this is the number one thing. Now, I'm going to expand on this idea of the sun, because this is something that I think is also helpful. That this is the example of this pure light. This pure light which can reflect and can manifest everything. Now, does the sun have any other qualities to it? Heat. Then it can create life, right? Photosynthesis. And does light have any color?
It may not. So
Pure light has no color to it. Pure light is invisible. Now, how do we know that the light is on in the room? Because we can see objects. So there's clear evidence. So there's no color in light. Now, if we say that this is the final description, that light is colorless, this is the nirguna aspect, then we're not getting the full weight of the bill fruit. Why? Because this colorless light contains within it all of the colors of the rainbow. That light goes through the prism of Maya. On the other side, it becomes this whole varied universe. All of the colors come out of that one indivisible light, and the sun is unchanged. So this is the whole point of this, that how can Brahman itself become this universe and remain unchanged? Through this prism of Maya. And this whole universe now is visible through the light of the sun also. So what is the difference between one is called Saguna Brahman, that we accept the fact that this invisible light contains all the colors, all imaginable colors, and yet remains unmanifest until this Maya is there, and then you can go through that, and then this whole visible universe comes. So the main point of this is that no matter how many reflections of Brahman there are in the world, Brahman is unchanged and remains whole and full. So we have this Purnamada Purnamidam, that even if this whole universe comes out of that one sun, the sun remains perfectly full. It doesn't diminish anything like that. So that's the main purpose of it. It's not meant to say that the container is real and the water and all of that. That's secondary. Main thing is that how one thing can appear to be many without actually undergoing any change itself, is the nature of Brahman.
Anybody else?
No. You had a questioning face. You have a question?
Well, I hadn't formed a question fully, but I think it had to do with the transitory nature of things as kind of a way to be detached in a way, is it?
Yes, to bring detachment. This is the whole point of it. To not cling to things, to let things flow by, to observe them, to watch them. That the whole time everything is transitory. I'm also that one thing that is the constant observer of everything. So I have that element of myself that is also flowing with time. I have that element within that is the unchanging observer of everything. So both. And to bring detachment, yes.
So, and then I guess, at the same time, like, just me personally, as far as like feeling, thinking, I feel, a friend was saying, and I latched onto the word, it's like, that we are also like eternal.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of, to have them kind of exist at the same time.
One at the same time. See, there's an aspect to our being which has no attributes or qualities to it whatsoever. It is simply the pure observer, like the mirror. And this is the whole point of it, of Vedanta, that we confuse them. So the reflected sun, we think belongs to the water. Or we see a reflection in the mirror, we think the reflection belongs to the mirror. The mirror is unattached. The mirror is not affected by anything, no matter how beautiful or ugly somebody is standing before it. And that image that is there, as soon as they leave, it's gone. So if we can feel that inner strength, and it affects the mind. Even my mind, I'll convince myself I will not allow my mind to be affected by all these transitory things. I want my mind to become strong. It's kutastha, it's movable like the mountain, like the blacksmith's hammer on the anvil. No matter how many times it smashes that anvil, the anvil is immovable. It won't be affected at all. So we have that aspect of our being that we can't even say is within time. It has no qualities or aspect, anything to it. It's just a pure observer, the pure witness. That's the real self. And the other self, that's the aspect of ourselves that we identify with the mind and the senses and everything. That'll always be coming and going. But I'm the observer of this lifetime from the time I was born to the present. I've been watching it. The same eye. has been watching without undergoing any change, but allowing the mind to undergo change, and allowing the mind to function through memory and everything else. But if that I witness is changing, we won't have the same feeling. I'm the same person I was when I was a little child, the same I. Or when we have a dream, that I'm the same I that I dreamt that I did so many things in a dream. How is that possible? That sense of I is not dependent upon this physical body. In the dream, it identifies with the dream body, same I. And we analyze who is that I? It's not even the dreamer, it's the sleeper. It goes back to that consciousness itself. It is our pure Advaita Vedanta.
I mean, I have so many questions. But kind of going to the I and this pure observer, I guess I'm trying to bridge, the sense of I and connecting with others. Because in the sense of being a pure observer, it feels, there's the oneness, but there's the aloneness, and yet this kind of maybe projected understanding of other people.
Yes. Okay, so this feeling that I am the observer, that I'm watching everything, is not necessarily the best attitude for everybody to take in spiritual life. For some, it's much better to feel I'm a child of God, that I'm somebody who has ups and downs, all of that, to admit my failings as an individual, because that's, for most of us, that's the real sense of identification. But we can also recognize that this is the surface, that beneath that is a deeper type of reality. But we utilize that sense of I. This is why Sri Ramakrishna, he emphasizes that. Yes, you have that type of feeling, then stop identifying yourself in terms of all these transitory things. You don't have to say I'm the witness. You can say I'm a child of God. You can form some divine relationship. And the moment we do that, if I say I'm a child of the Divine Mother, that means that my sense of identification is stronger than it is even with my earthly mother. I think of the earthly mother, I'm thinking of this body came out of that body. But if I think of myself as the divine presence within, then one with the Divine Mother who is the real source of my being. So that type of identification will cut this other strong identification with the physical body and our personality and our likes and our dislikes and all the things that get us into trouble. Without going so far as to, because not everybody likes that idea. I am the witness, I'm watching this, I'm watching that. This kind of this mindfulness idea, it appeals to many people, but not to everybody. It's a little too dry for some people and a little too far-fetched for some people. It doesn't seem real.
I guess in part, I was asking in terms of wanting to feel connected to other people,
Yes.
and then have like understanding others, or having other understanding,
Yes.
and then kind of a shared understanding.
Yes. Okay. So this is very much a part of this idea that if we can disidentify with the aspects of our personality that are superficial, color of skin, place of birth, country of origin, all of these different things, if we can go even just to that level of humanity, that I'm somebody who wants to do something in life, that I want to love people, I want to, and understand that everybody has that same, beneath everything else, you eliminate a lot of the external things, that we all have this we're all in the same boat, we're all members of this same human race, that we all want the same things out of life, even though we may distort them and we may do it in harmful ways, but deep down, everybody wants to achieve some sense of happiness and contentment in life. And we share all of these things. We can feel oneness on the human level. If we can do it on the divine level, wonderful. God dwells within all beings, wonderful. But if we can, at least we can feel that common, if not divinity, common humanity with everyone. just by going beneath the surface, all of these things that separate us. Superficial things. Just go beneath that and we can feel the sense of oneness with everybody. It can be done. This is not a very difficult thing. We have to learn to see the world through the eyes of other people and understand how the world looks to them, and then understand why they may act in different ways. But according to the way they're seeing the world, it's justified and it seems right to them. We have this common ground of humanity with everyone. And we have to really just eliminate the superficial things that separate us from other people, and we can feel that oneness. Even for non-religious people. We can feel that the humanitarian types of people, that somehow they can relate and identify with all people.
Maharaj, I had a question.
I'm going to sit for a second.
I wanted to know what your thoughts are on how spirituality will affect someone who is going through a mental illness. Like we hear of stories where you're able to transcend physical pain if you can rely on like a higher power or if you're spiritually inclined. What are your thoughts on how spirituality will affect in terms of mental illnesses like dementia and Alzheimer's?
We have to assume that before the onset of these things, that these deep samskaras are being created, and that internally, at least, that whatever we've gained in spiritual life, whatever feeling of the divine, whatever devotion that we have, that will be there. It may not be manifest exactly. Yeah. We've had some of the great swamis of our order that went through last years of their lives almost like vegetables. Some that were the most brilliant, and some go in a coma. So the feeling is that internally what they've achieved, that will remain with them. And at the very end, this will be the thing that comes to the forefront. Now, when it comes to things like depression and all of that, difficulty is that we're trying to, all of this is a function of the mind. That when we're trying to deal with these things, it's the mind that has to deal with it. The mind that's caught in depression, there's a very hard time in pulling itself out of it, because it's, for one person to help another person, that one person has to be in good shape to help the person not in good shape. If they're both in bad shape, then it's difficult. So sometimes it's very hard to pull out of that state of depression. But I think that having the spiritual ideal will be one of the best helps, if possible. People who have any type of mental illness or things like that should get professional help also. We shouldn't simply say, oh, go meditate or do this or that, pray to God, this and that. There are professionals who can help people. Even we see some people, they're losing their memory, dementia and things like that. They can be happy, and they can feel that, yes, I've done everything in life. I can't remember things, I don't care, it's okay. And other people get very angry at the end. Yeah, this type of dementia, anger they talk about. So, yeah, this life is very uncertain. We can't say what will happen to us at the end, what will happen to our mental faculties. Some of the most brilliant people we see, they start to lose their memory and everything. We pray for ourselves, we pray for everybody. This won't happen. And I think that even those who are suffering from these things internally, they can have that sense of peace if we develop it at a young age. Yeah, this is one of the reasons why we have our spiritual practice, is that this will save us at the end when we have to deal with physical ailments, and as you say, mental difficulties are more. Yeah, when you say not even moved by heavy sorrow, that means you're still having heavy sorrow, but we can somehow not lose our balance with it. So, yeah, but sometimes very sad. We see people that so lively and so devoted in the whole lifetime, and then how the mind can change at the end. I spoke this morning on the grace of the mind. So we have to really pray for that, and we have to always feel grateful that if we're not suffering from these things, never take for granted that this mind can, anything can happen. We don't know, physical body also, but we should have that feeling that this is, if the mind remains sharp despite ailments of the body, the type of grace.
Thank you, Maharaj.
There's one more question.
No question? I think we should be the last one.
Swamiji, we've been told this karma, you do good without any expectation, and whatever is destined, it's also possibly because of the past karma. Then there is people talking about manifestation, where you think of it and it'll happen. So is there a place for manifestation in any of the philosophies that you talked about, or is manifestation to be considered a desire?
Yeah, this idea that if we have some desire for something and it turns into reality, or we have some thought, and this we see in the lives of some great mystics. So the life of Swami Krishna, we can say that yes, we can have that idea that calling on the Divine Mother, send me these young disciples and everything, and then they come. And everything that he sees in vision, it comes true. This is not for the ordinary person. I myself don't have any experience with things like that. If they happen, I usually will say a nice coincidence. So, or karma. We don't know, but karma should never dissuade us from trying to take things, utilize self-effort, and to believe in change. We have to believe that we can change ourselves and transform ourselves, even though this past karma may be pushing us in one direction or holding us back. Then we have to hold on to this idea that I can do anything if I have that determination and willpower. Whether, of course, it's limited, but still, to have that feeling that Swamiji says, to feel that we can empty the water in the ocean by using a leaf of grass, one drop at a time, to have that optimism and to have that perseverance and the positive attitude. So we know that there are limits. There are limits to how much we can change, and sometimes we have to work through our own personality. We can't completely reinvent ourselves, but we have to not feel restricted or limited too much by this past karma, that idea.
I think that is probably is the end of our question and answer session. And I'd like to thank Maharaj so much for being here. And I know you must be very tired today from having a session in the morning, traveling, and being so patient to answer everyone's question. And thank you so much for giving us the time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And
Nice to
thanks
see
to
you.
all of you, all our devotees for being here on a Sunday evening. And before you leave, please accept the box we have prepared for you next door, like in this kitchen.
Okay. Yeah, thank you all for being so patient. I hope I didn't say anything that will offend anybody or confuse anybody. It's been fun. So, yeah.